Find the code book and save the satellite. It's the Interbank Incident on the CoCo Show, episode 37. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the CoCo Show. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're going to be talking about the Interbank Incident.
Think piece.
Now, Aaron, you haven't told this story in a while, and I don't think you've ever told it on the CoCo Show.
All right.
But you were involved in a little bit of industrial sabotage yourself. Why don't you regale our listeners about the time that you hacked your way into the AT&T backlot where you managed to salvage some of their valuable telecommunications equipment?
That was the idiot incident, is what you're referring to. This is an old... Listen, you make it sound more sinister and cagey than it was. I was getting ready to make something up, too, because I had no idea what you were talking about. You corralled me right into that one, Boat. So in my younger days, this predates you, but phone freaking was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like Flack would understand what I'm talking about here if you've been around that long. On BBSs, you could get all this stuff to tell you how to phone freak, which is basically hacking the phone system, getting free phone calls, Boat, because back in the day, you had to pay for every call. It was expensive, you know? And so the easiest way to do this would be to get the secret documents you needed to backdoor your way in. Well, I don't know what that meant. I had no idea how to do any of this stuff. But I know me and my buddy Rich knew that one thing we did have to do was break in to the local telephone office area, get in their back lot, and then get into their dumpster.
Yeah.
And so myself, my old buddy, the Big Q, Rich, and a couple other guys that we knew, if you could believe this, climbed the fence. That's right. And got into the dumpster and just grabbed all the bags, took them out, and we were in the dumpster, by the way. I don't know if have you ever been in a dumpster?
No, never.
I don't recommend it. And then we took all the stuff that was in there and took it to my buddy's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And then and my buddy was also, I should mention this, he was jacked up on something.
Oh, okay.
I believe he was taking Rush that night.
Ooh.
And I don't mean the band.
Mm.
And it's this thing you huff out of a little bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was jacked up beyond the moon. And so he just took this stuff into his living room, onto his carpet, and he just ripped it open. So all these different trash bags spewed their contents all over his floor. And then we just sort of looked at what was in there. I mean, there was papers and stuff in there.
Yeah, papers.
But they meant nothing. Like, they're utterly pointless. We had no idea what we were doing, you know. And so I remember thinking this was cool. Then this was crazy, and then thinking this is real dumb, and it was real dumb. And as a footnote to the story, we left with all this crap on this guy's rug. We didn't care because he'd passed out. And his girlfriend was drunk, too, and she kept telling me that she was seeing a spiritual bee flying around, which I was like, huh, that's weird.
That is an Interbank incident right there. That's a video game in the making.
That was the Interbank Incident of Hurricane. That's as close as we're going to come.
Now, is this the old AT&T that used to be the Cellular One that this went down at?
No, this was in the Valley. This isn't like a place where you go buy your cell phone. This was like a place that had a tower.
Really?
Yeah. And so we actually went. It was like I don't know what they call it formally, but it had satellite dishes. And
Where
stuff.
is this? Was this off the?
It was in the Valley.
Where WVAH
it's Scott Depot.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you ever done anything similar to that, Boat? You look like a guy that did a little B&E.
Listen, when I was in college, there was this Frisbee golf course because this is when Frisbee golf was taken off. Right.
I'm already let down by this story, but go ahead.
And we noticed that like the gym, the gymnasium that was next to the Frisbee golf course had a flat roof, and we're like, man, there's got to be 500 Frisbee golf discs on that roof. Okay, so we hatched the plan. The plan was in the dead of night to steal away to the Frisbee golf course and climb a ladder. This is like a 40-foot ladder to the top of this thing. So we borrowed a ladder from the French horn professor. We did not tell him the where it was going to end up. We carried the ladder by putting it on top of a Jeep and holding our hands above the window, holding the ladder in position as we drove to the Frisbee golf course. We climbed to the top of the roof of the gym.
Yeah.
We found 2 Frisbee golf discs up there.
Oh, what
That
a
was it.
letdown.
Yeah.
That's not bad, though. Jeep with a ladder in it, driving. Okay.
Yeah.
You pulled that one out of the fire,
It
Bo,
had
I
the
have to
elements.
say.
It had the elements of a classic adventure, just with none of the payoff.
Have you ever been arrested or done any hard time, Boat?
No, not yet. Not yet. The
Okay,
night's still young, though.
There you go.
So Aaron, let's talk about one of our most favorite people in the world before we get into the Interbank Incident. Let's talk about Frank from Retro Rewind and a little piece of hardware I like to call the CoCo SDC. Hit it! Are you ready to take the plunge into the exciting world of the Tandy Color Computer? Have you tried emulation and found it to be confusing and unreliable? The hell is Bitbanger? It's time to get yourself a real CoCo and get yourself over to RetroRewind.ca to get it out with everything you need to enter the CoCo universe. The CoCo SDC is the fastest, easiest way to jump into the nirvana that is gaming on the Tandy Color Computer. A preloaded SD card is already included, so just pop it in your CoCo and away you go. Pick up your CoCo SDC at Retro Rewind and be sure to use the promo code AMIGOS10 to save 10% off the already low price. Thank you to RetroRewind.ca for sponsoring the CoCo Show. All right, Aaron,
Frank.
Let's get into it. The Interbank Incident.
Doesn't really have any music, does it, Bo?
No.
There you go. Well, we tried. Listen, the Interbank Incident. Now, for people that are paying attention, you may recall that several years ago, myself and the Brent stumbled upon this little beauty here on ARG, and I went back and took a look at that bit. And I will go back and I will say that was what I would call a little puffy little piece we did that didn't really flesh this thing out. So when this came back up, I'm like, okay, good. I got another shot at this thing. And I'm anxious to hear what Bo thinks about it too, because we actually have a story about getting to play this. If you were also paying attention, you'll understand what that means. But this week, as Bo mentioned, it's the Interbank Incident, a provocative title, if I may say, published by Tandy and developed by the Spectral Associates, one of my all-time favorite company names.
That's an awesome name.
The Spectral Associates did a ton of CoCo games and games on other machines. Some of the ones that I saw that I thought were super hits: Whirly Bird Run, which is a great game; Springster that we covered; the Pegasus versus the Phantom Riders, which we covered, we both liked; Lancer. Did you know they actually? That's kind of wacky. And a game that was very popular back in the day, Madness and the Minotaur, which is a text game, as I recall. This requires any CoCo, CoCo 1, 2, or 3 with 64K of memory, a floppy drive, or a hard drive. Yes, this has hard drive support. This will support the joystick or a mouse. It's got mouse support. And as we famously found out, this has speech pack support. This was released in '85, written by John Gabbard. I looked into John Gabbard a little bit, to see what he'd been up to, and he has done a few things, including Demolition Derby, which I like, a game on the C64 called Roll Call USA. Sounds cool. Keys of the Wizard on the CoCo. He also was responsible for the Holiday Demonstration Program. He also wrote a book. He wrote a book. He wrote you, Boat. He wrote a book for the CoCo called CoCo 3 Secrets Revealed that came out in '86. So he's done a few things. His partner in crime here, David Fidge, who worked on a game called Maze Escape, but often worked on with Gabbard on some of these other games. The graphics for this were done by E.T. Gatlin. This guy's a man of mystery. I couldn't find anything on him, and the graphics,
which is odd because you think this guy would be the hot ticket in CoCo land, considering these graphics are some of the best the system has.
I agree with you, Boat. Now, before we get too deep into this, Boat, I'm going to reveal the big news that bam, I own this game. Here it is. If you're watching at home,
golden packaging,
the box copy. And if I were to open the box up here, you've got your manual and the floppy disks that it come with. There's what the package looks like on the inside. You're watching at home. So, but yeah, this is one that I owned. And so, which makes it easier because I could get out the book and whatnot, Boat. This game is a real ahead of the curve game. And I didn't mention this when I looked at this before because didn't know enough about it. But this game actually, aside from the fact that it supports the CoCo mouse, aside from the fact that it supports the speech pack, and those sorts of things, it also supports fully the OS 9 operating system. And this is what I mean. Think about this, Bo, a CoCo game that is readily available to install on your hard drive.
Yeah,
which is great. 2-disc game can't hurt. This also supports multiple drives.
when you think about just the technical specs of this thing, it's OS 9, it's hard drive installable, and it was released in 1985.
Yeah,
I mean, this was a game truly ahead of its time.
Yeah, so you got to give the Spectral Associates some credit on this. I should mention that I looked into the Spectral Associates a little bit. We've talked about them a few times. They were founded in '80, and they went away sometime in the late '80s. They were out of Tacoma, Washington, and then eventually they moved to Auburn, Washington, boat. And again, they did a lot of games on the color computers we mentioned earlier. So this was, I would say, if you had a high water mark, this would be right near the top. Now, having played this before, Boat, I knew what to expect coming into this one. But the first time we got this thing working, I think the very first time you saw it was probably when we hooked up the multi-pack. Had you played this before we fired it up in the arcade on our show?
I heard you and Brent talk about it on ARG, and it piqued my interest.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until we fired it up with the speech pack that I saw it come to life.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Well, it was a lot of fun in between the parts where I wanted to hang myself from the non-existent cable we didn't have. If you are interested in going back and watching us play this, me and Boat did play this game live on stream, and it's available on the Amigos Stream Team section. I believe that's where we put it, Boat, and it's me and Boat firing up this game with the multi-pack. It shouldn't be any trouble to find. It's a Friday Night Disaster stream. So, Boat, since I've actually talked this a little bit, give me your thoughts as you see this hone into view. I mean, I'm assuming did you before you started the game, did you actually look into the docs or anything?
No.
I know we had a cup of coffee with it, but did you look into the background of what this game was about?
What I did was, this game does come with a very extensive backstory.
Yeah,
none of which I can immediately recall offhand.
Yeah.
But it has to do with stolen papers. You're trying. Go ahead.
If you want me to fill you in real quick,
yes,
I write it down, and I do have the manual here, so it makes it easier. So, just as from the game box, just a quick summarization. The situation is grave. The code book controlling a top-secret experimental satellite has been stolen. In the wrong hands, the satellite can do almost anything. Can you collect the clues and tips in order to find the crooks and regain control of the satellite? It started at the Interbank Corporation headquarters in New York. It seemed like a simple burglary at first. A couple of drawers first opened, some petty cash stolen. Fortunately, a security guard noticed that the burglar had shut off the main vault security system for 45 seconds. That's when they discovered the code book to control top-secret experimental satellite codenamed Nebulous Project had been stolen. And that's pretty much the background that they give you outwardly. I will say, I read the whole story in the book. I've read it a couple times. And this rule book or game book has a full-blown, 7 or 8 pages where they talk about, it gave you basically your briefing as to when you get assigned this. You're basically an agent for an outfit that is coming in to investigate this crime. And they give you like a full background, everything you would need to know about Interbank as a corporation, the incident that happened, what's stolen, what it can do. It's actually pretty interesting. They put a lot of time into this backstory, Boat, and then that leads you up to picking one of your agents. I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, so you can pick that you have a choice of 7 characters you can be.
Yeah.
And again, for a game from 1985, there is a person of color, there is a woman, so there's some diversity on the panel here.
Yeah, and you also have their jobs are their job. They each have like special abilities.
Right. You've also got things they're good at, sort of character flaws. All of these things are revealed to you when you click on the character. You get kind of a bio sheet. Now, how much does this actually play into the game? For me, none. For people that I read about this game that know a lot about it, none. But it's cool because there's nothing wrong with giving you a little bit when you're setting out to be a protagonist. Sometimes it puts you in the kind of the environment of the game when you can picture certain things about your player. You know, this game takes place, we should talk about the fact that this game takes place from a first person perspective. So you see the world through the eyes of your character, which means that once you select your character, you never ever see them again. It's much like if you play Skyrim or something, you spend 8 billion hours perfecting your face in the character creator, and then you never look upon your face again once the game starts. But I like it. You know, I like it when games give you a little bit of they go a little bit further than they need to, just to kind of put you in the mood of the game.
I will say, I read there. This is one of the few CoCo games that has a extensive game fact over at GameFAQs, including maps of the cities you can visit. I mean, extensive game fact on it. And believe it or not, they haven't fully figured out what all the character special abilities and what areas they help, but some will actually help you. And so the character you pick does make a difference in some areas.
Okay.
And I'll explain why.
Okay.
The characters, by the way, just because it's interesting to see what kind of diverse outfit you've got. You've got a guy named Bob, who is a gym. He works at a fitness instructor. You've got a guy named John, who's a 007 super spy type character. Jackie, she's a clumsy blonde who also happens to be a master of disguise. That's an odd combo.
Yeah.
Alex Johnson is a computer hacker type. Then you've got Mick Tarman, who's the black gentleman. He's a Vietnam vet, which I like. Alan Kramer's an oddball. He's a psychic of some renown. And then Carl Weitz is a high-tech specialist. And then, so you're asking, okay, what can you do with these things? For the most part, they are all the same. But there are some occasions where, like, you can get something done. For example, I believe it's Bob, the fitness guy. He can kick down a locked door. Okay? John, the 007 type, he's so smooth and charming that he didn't have to pay for tickets on like ferries. Stuff like that.
Okay. So yeah, so there are aspects of these guys' characters that will help you. I can see that.
Right. So yeah, and now I'll listen. This is all from just reading the game fact. I got nowhere near it knowing what these things do, but there is something to them. Now, I want to get your opinion on this interface, Bode. This game, I don't think there's any CoCo games like this. And again, this game came out pretty early on. Now, Bo, you're more into these games than me, so you'll have to put the interface in this game into the time stamp of what was going on in '85. But this is a mouse-driven, if you've got a mouse, like adventure game where it's all icon based. There's no typing. A lot of CoCo games would have this exact same setup, except at the bottom of the screen they would have an area where you would type your old Zort commands. This game forwent that, and they've got a look, talk, use, that sort of thing, and then you've got an inventory under it, and it's all mouse driven with pull down windows. What was going on about this time? Is this something you'd say was fairly common by '85, or is this ahead of the curve, Boat?
This is so far ahead of the curve. It's in a different lane. This is I've never seen a game this early have an icon based point and click interface at all. I mean, like when you think about King's Quest, stuff like that, first of all, those games, I believe the first King's Quest came out around this same time. And of course it was just you had character movement, but you were still controlling everything with text commands.
Yeah.
Of course, this was the era of the text-based adventure game where all you had was text, or quite popular on the CoCo, you had that, like you said, the graphic and the text parser below.
Right.
But the fact that not only it's almost like they skipped a full generation, because I always think about like the first generation Scum games as being the beginnings of the point and click adventure genre, and those were just text interface or text icons. But then you had the second generation starting with like King's Quest 4 or something like that, where they replaced all the words with icons. This is way before all that stuff, and it works well. So these guys, it's a shame In a way, it's cool that I believe this was a CoCo exclusive release, correct?
Correct. Yeah, this has never been on anything else.
It's a shame that this didn't get out there in other formats, because these guys would have probably done a lot better financially if it had. But it's cool for the CoCo that they can, CoCo owners can say, look, we've got this game. It was doing stuff that no other game was doing.
Yeah, and just to, in case you're listening and not looking at the screen, you've got 8 icons: get, look, examine, talk, use, help, and then you've got a disk, input, output, and move. Beneath that, it has a list of your who you are and how much money you've got. You've got a bank card, and that has an account. Then you've got whatever you've got on you. Then below that is your inventory. You can have up to 8 items in an inventory, and you could also use some of these items will take multiple icons. For example, you can use the basically like the one of the icons that's like the pointer. You can use that in combination with your foot to do a kick,
right?
Which I had to look that up.
Yeah, you've got it. This is a game unlike a lot of the Scum Engine games. The interface, you have to know the tricks of it. Like you have to be able to combine, like if you combine exam with your eye and an object, it will look at the object.
Yeah,
and that kind of thing isn't the most intuitive, but it worked, I guess, as a great anti-piracy measure because if you wouldn't get far in this game without knowing those tricks.
I also want to bring up the examine icon, which is a literal magnifying glass that lets you zoom in 5 times. Did you use that much, or is just as a novelty?
Oh, well, I think there's places in the game where you have to use it.
Right. I'm not sure I got the one, but I remember at the time when I played this when I was a kid, I was like, man, this is awesome.
That's mind-blowing.
Really zooming in.
It's mind-blowing. I've never seen another game from this era do that. I mean, and I'm sure from a technical perspective, it's not hard to do, but man, it's cool. It's super cool.
Now, we've talked about the setup of the game, and we've talked about the plot of the game. I want to talk about the game's use of some of the peripherals. Of course, when you boot this game, it asks you, do you have 1 or 2 floppy drives? You can tell it 1 or 2, and if you've got 2, you can put both discs in. That was not something you saw that much back then. It also asks you if you have a speech pack. If you had one, which we did infamously in our stream, this game will read stuff to you. I mean, it will basically, the CoCo will send text to the sound device, and it will read the game to you. Now, is this something you'd want to do for the whole game? Probably not. You might not like it. There is a way to turn it on and off in the game. I found out,
nice, yeah.
But it was still unique. How many games were you playing that could tell you what was happening? Also, occasionally in the game, you'll come into areas where the speech pack will have audio effects, like the ocean, or train sounds, stuff like boats, which was neat. Is this worth having the multi-pack hooked up and the sounding? I don't know, maybe. I mean, if you got them, it's kind of cool.
It is. When you're playing this type of game, you are eager for atmosphere.
Yeah.
And so when you walk onto that wharf and you hear the sounds of the gulls crying, and you go to the train, you hear the train. I mean, that's the kind of thing that pulls you in. I like it.
Yeah. Now, as you get into this game, the actual mystery of this game, it's a literal mystery. You're going around, you're talking to people, and with dialogue chains and stuff. I mean, it's actually pretty interesting. You're literally sleuthing. I mean, this isn't like a game that they tacked a kind of a neat interface on the dud. I mean, there's a lot of investigation in this game, and when I looked at the amount of areas you could go to in it, I was stunned. There's multiple cities, including Paris is in there. I think Rio de Janeiro was in there as well. And there's also a lot of stuff to do, and it's not like you're going there and there's like 1 or 2 rooms. I looked at the maps for all these places, and there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, this is a pretty large game. Of course, it took 2 discs, so I guess they had the room to do it. But I mean, this is an expansive adventure with a lot of the kind of thinking I'm not good at. Boat. Did you get very far in this?
It's hard to no, because I read a walkthrough and I know how long the game is.
Yeah.
I did not get very far because of the main point of contention I have with this game.
Yeah.
And that is, in a graphic adventure, like I'm gonna compare this again with a game like Maniac Mansion. you are directly controlling your guy. And so, like when he walks left, he moves to the left, when he walks right. And it's mostly a lateral based exploration. Now, with King's Quest and stuff, there are places where you do move in all four directions. This is a game that moves, it almost feels like you're moving between dimensions, because you've got a compass rose, but the compass rose doesn't always mean the same thing all the time. Like, you can enter a room and you can't always back out in the direction that you feel like you should be able to based on the graphical indicators on the screen.
They've actually explained this in the manual, because me and you both had this problem, and I didn't realize what they were going for until I read this. All right, and so the manual states that the compass works like basically when you walk into a store or walk into an area, it automatically places you looking forward. And so to go back the way you came, you wouldn't hit the way you wouldn't, like if you went right to go into a place, you would think you would go left, but you wouldn't go left. That's not because of the way this game works. You're looking, it reorients the compass to the way you're looking. Now I guess they thought this was going to be a problem, because a feature I didn't know was on there, I didn't exactly know how it worked, is in the middle of the compass there's a B. It doesn't mean backwards, it means before. And hitting that button will take you back to the exact place you were when you came into the room.
Yeah, see,
I didn't know it either. That. Hey, listen, instructions, brother. I had to look through it. So that's something that is, but still, with all that said, I'm sure if they had it to do over again, they wouldn't orient the compass in that weird, it is confusing.
Well, here's the thing. I downloaded a map for this game, and I had it open on my second screen as I was playing, and I still could not navigate the places that I should have been able to get to. And sometimes I would find a place and go there once and never figure out how to get back to it. This killed my desire to play this game, because if you can't negotiate the environments, you can't do anything. It's such a shame, because this game does so many other things right. And this is really a game I can see myself getting pretty far into. I'm a sucker for good old point and click adventure game, especially one that looks as good as this one. The graphics on this game, we should take a moment and talk about the graphics. This has got your typical Tandy interlaced graphics. They look, there's multiple colors. But the thing that's great about this is there's, in almost every scene, there's a little bit of animation. For example, we're looking at a screen now that's got an animated flag on a flagpole. It's got clouds flowing by. The graphics and the animation in this game are really stunning. They really are. And I wanted to see more. And I knew how to do it theoretically. I had the walkthrough open in front of me. I could move through it. I just couldn't figure out how to maneuver to the places that I needed to get to. It was so frustrating.
Maybe armed with this new knowledge like I am, because I read this, and once I did that, it was easier for me. Okay, so and you could get these manuals online. I would have a look at that section just to orient yourself, because once I did that, I was like, okay, I think this was not the best choice, but at least I have an idea of what I'm doing, as opposed to before. And the B button, which I never used, I use that all the time now.
We should also mention that this game is unique in that it procedurally generates objects. It randomly places some of the items that you find in this game. So you will never play the exact same adventure twice. Should you happen to beat this, you can go back and they will place some of the items in different places. And I think that that's cool too. It adds an element of randomness to a game, and it adds replay value to a genre that normally has none.
Yeah, and plus each character is going to have their different ways to use their abilities. So you're able to skip stuff or whatnot. Something else this game provided, which you didn't see every day back then, was the ability to save the game wherever you wanted. And you had 10 save slots, which is not bad for a game like this. I mean, it's amazing how far ahead this game was in a lot of ways. I will say this, just a couple tidbits on this. If you wanted to try this, which I recommend, and if you have a CoCo, you definitely want to get the mouse. Okay. Now that much said, having seen the mouse now and seen people use the mouse is not very good. The CoCo mouse was low. It makes the tank mouse look like $1 million. So this is one game where I would number one see if you could get another solution for the mouse. I mean, you can use the Black Beauties and stuff because they're analog, but I mean, I would rather use a mouse. This is probably one if you can emulate it, or you have a way of hooking a good mouse up to your CoCo. It's probably the way to go, as opposed to trying to use that old mouse. Secondly, when you play this, since it's got so many save slots, you really don't have to have a modern equivalent. You can play this on the CoCo if you can get a good interface, because the save does work. I mean, I would save my games on it. I've played this thing a lot on my actual CoCo, and the one thing that you're going to find infuriating, aside from moving around, is it is a slow game. I mean, going from scene to scene is it's not fast.
Going from scene to scene, and again, it's that just makes the frustration level go through the roof when you're like, you don't know how to get to where you need to go, and you keep going between the same 3 scenes over and over and over again.
This game is, in some ways, it's a victim of its era. You know, it really aimed high, but you can only do so much. There are limitations to even if you shoot that high in the air. But I found this thing quite remarkable. Now, I looked for some reviews before we get to the Discord reviews. I looked for reviews on this boat. I went back to my old favorites, the icepeople.net site. They give Interbank Incident a B-, and he's very similar to what we say here. He says the game looks fantastic on the surface, but in the end, it's maddeningly slow gameplay. It takes forever, and I do mean forever, to move between screens and execute many actions. He basically, literally says almost word for word what we say, this is a game that it was as quick as you can move it on a CoCo, and so you have to live with that in 2022, the speed of this thing. But, you know, I think it's a decent trade-off. This is one of those games, Boat. Listen, I do this a lot. I would love to see this thing get brought up to something, like brought up to another machine, ported. This would be a great game to port to anything, because the graphics, I mean, are great on the CoCo, but you could probably pull them off on pretty much any machine. And I would love to see this get a wider audience, like you said. I think it deserves it. That's for sure. Did we get any Discord action on this boat?
We did.
Great.
Mr. Dave 6309 writes, after I upgraded my CoCo 3 with 512K and OS 9, we jumped into a whole new world of new games, including this one. My wife and I had a lot of fun with these games, looking for clues and solving puzzles. It's a 2 thumbs up from Dave and Sharon. That's fantastic. That comes from Mr. Dave, maker of fine CoCo games himself.
Very good. Very good.
Exile in Paradise writes, the Interbank Incident, ambitious, complex, innovative. I did not know much about this game before it was chosen for the CoCo Show. Digging into it, I am extremely impressed with the design. The initial play reminded me a lot of Interplay's Neuromancer for the C64 in execution, but done years before that game appeared. And now I wonder if Neuromancer was inspired by Interbank. Interbank's plot definitely sounds very James Bond-like, but Bond is only one of the characters you can choose to try and tackle this beast. Each character has different strengths and weaknesses, according to the manual, and the game randomizes the possible solutions for replayability, which is something you don't see in most adventure role-playing games. Overall, the structure and design reminded me a lot of the modernized story and the same design as a classic mystery-solving board game called 221B Baker Street. You visit lots of locations and gather various clues and some red herrings until you figure out the who, the means, and the motive. Then you go to a specific location to win. Hats off to the designers of Interbank for a design with lots of choice, lots of replayability, and that has stood the test of time. All the possible solutions using all of the possible characters have not yet been discovered and shared. So even after all this time, there remains some mysteries within the Interbank Incident left to uncover.
Yes. Outstanding. And I will say, if you wanted to add this to your collection, this is actually, again, one of the games I've seen available more than I would have ever seen most any other games for the CoCo. I saw this on eBay, ranging all the way from $16 complete in box, all the way up to a copy that was going for $70 that was brand new and sealed.
Oh.
So you could actually get a sealed copy of this. Now, again, having owned this myself, I mean, it's not like you're getting all kinds of awesome extra stuff in here, but you do get the discs. You get 3 discs, you get the book, and you get the nice, and the book is helpful, but otherwise it's in your standard Tandy box, just like they always distributed their stuff. A good fun game, Boat. I really enjoyed this one, and going back to it a second time, I enjoyed it even more because I knew my way around. And really looking into the book, and I will say, if you do decide to play this, get the manual and read the innards, because the little dossiers that they give you give you a lot of good clues to get you started.
Yeah. All right, Aaron. Well, it is time to leave the Interbank Incident and talk about the fine folks that make this show possible. That is the CoCo Game Selection Committee. These guys choose the games that we play, and they're all pillars of the CoCo community. So a big Tandy thank you to Canadian Retro Things, L. Curtis Boyle, Robert Murphy, and Steve Rasmussen. We also want to thank our CoCo Show Patreons, including O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Graham Vebke, Buttons, and William Becker. Thank you so much for supporting the show.
Thanks, y'all.
Aaron, what do we have coming up next week?
Let's see, Bo.
For next week.
It's almost next week. It's Grand Prix Challenge.
Grand Prix Challenge. All right.
Yes, sir.
I've had a hankering to play some racing action on the CoCo, so I can't wait to sink my teeth into this one.
I think this one's a DICOM joint too.
Okay.
So that'll be fun.
All right. Well, guys, thank you as always for listening. We will see you next time, and until then, all hail
L. Curtis Boyle. Ooh, and the Spectral Associates. Ooh.